Hi, I'm Elise Tan, and I'm your host for this episode of Hard Truths by Vertex. Hi, Kee Lock. I'm excited to have Kee Lock on our show today. So Kee Lock is someone who needs no introduction, as he's a successful and accomplished investor and entrepreneur. At Vertex, Kee Lock holds 4 roles. He is managing partner at Vertex Ventures Southeast Asia and India. He is CEO of Vertex Holdings, chairman of Vertex Growth Fund, and last but not least, non-executive chairman at Vertex SPAC. So Vertex has grown a lot under your leadership, Kee Lock. There is a lot going on at Vertex. So last year, we have Grab that has gone public, and we have not one, but 3 portfolio companies that have become unicorn, namely Dishes, Nium, and PatSnap. Now we have 6 unicorns in the portfolio. So I wanted to ask you, what's going on in your life and what's top of your mind these days?
Well, I guess for me, there are 3 things that come to mind. First and foremost is continuously looking out for good people and talented people to join us, be passionate about what we're trying to do, and always strive to do a better result, and also keeping these people challenged to even do better every day. Second is constantly rise above our competition and stay ahead of our competitors. And that's a very important factors that we always must remind ourselves that this is important. And last but not least is, of course, it's about success, not to let success get to our head. We have been successful so far. We need to remind ourselves to remain humble, not to be complacent. And some point in time, we probably will stumble. And at that point in time, we have to focus on the challenges and issues ahead of us and not to be distracted, and to solve the problem systematically, and then strive to even bring the company to greater heights.
I like what you have shared with us. I think especially the part about not letting success get to us, being complacent. And I realized from talking to so many of our Vertex colleagues, right, that humility is such a strong factor in, I think, most people. And I find that really refreshing because a lot of them are so accomplished and so intelligent. So to me, how they remain humble is something I admire. And the same goes to our founders as well. When I interview them, I also see that, they are so capable in what they do, yet they are still humble and still willing to learn. So just curious, Kee Lock, you have been in VC space for quite a while. I'm just wondering, what is the most memorable deal for you?
I think that would be Grab. That would be a company that, despite all the challenges they've encountered in initial days, the team, especially Anthony, was able to overcome many of them and successfully execute their plan and vision, and eventually build a great companies in this region.
Yeah, tell me more about Grab, because there's a lot, I guess, under the radar. Tell us about maybe a story of how they have overcome a huge challenge.
Well, for many of us who probably may not remember, Grab started originally as a My Taxi in a couple of cities in Malaysia. Together with Vertex, funding and coming together, believing that this region, Southeast Asia, there are many cities requiring and needing such services, and Grab renamed itself to Grab and from My Taxi, and then expanded its services to this region. This unfortunately caught the attention of a larger player called Uber, which came from US and Europe. This is a company which is much better financed that time, much larger in scale, has a lot more, resources for themselves. And that attracted Uber enter our market. And with their finance and their cash that they have, and many of the predatory actions they've taken against Grab, initially was a big challenge for the team. But I think credit to Anthony and his team realizing that what is important is localization. What's important to build a strong team. What is important is to build a good offering and product and quality offering product in each of the market. And ultimately, they are able to win more customer and overcome all these, the initial hurdles. And eventually, they acquire Uber. And of course, Uber exited the market totally.
think that is such a great David and Goliath story. Thank you for sharing with us. But you also mentioned about being passionate. But how would you be able to test for passion? Because oftentimes we only meet the founders for a short while before we need to make a decision to invest.
What is something that's the hardest part about business? I think as you mentioned earlier on, market, products, and financial modeling is not difficult to figure out. Ultimately, what is the most important factor is the team and the founding team member and the leadership. How we assess that is critical. So we actually spend a lot more time with the founding team and the founders trying to understand what is motivating them, what is their attitude towards certain things, and how do they go about building greater companies over time. And in the event of challenges or issues, how do they able to focus on it together? And I think I may share with you this story that when I was a Logitech lead independent director many years ago. Logitech is a Swiss company, and they had the R&D centers in Lausanne EPFL campus, and then they have this staircase whereby from first floor to second floor there's this small little poster with three simple liner there, and then basically says ability, motivations, and attitude, and he described ability is what you can do. Motivation determines what you will do. Attitudes drives how well you do something. So I think for us, it's ultimately assessing ability, assessing motivation is fairly easy, but ultimately it's trying to figure out what is the attitude. How do they go about doing certain things, and it's equally important.
I really like what you have shared because it kind of summarized what we have covered so far. So we have talked about ability to execute. So when we talk about passion, and now you mentioned about attitude. And I think that attitude is definitely super important in the factor, whether it's in terms of a founder or someone who wants to be successful in life. So do you have an example of a founder who has displayed the kind of attitude that you like?
I guess in the most recent example will be Nium. Project, in the early days onset, decided that he wanted to build a technology platform solutions, allowing the facilities to make it easier for consumer to remit cash over different borders. And after building the technology, demonstrating that he's able to do this through many, many different countries, he quickly discovered that while the technology works, while this is a possible business proposition, the path towards profitability will be very challenging as a C2C model. And as a founder, obviously, he was able to recognize this issue and pivoted and adjusted his business model, transformed himself to today where he is, in terms of providing a mobile payment solutions versus trying to just purely be a remittance company. So in so doing, when you are, even though the technology platform solutions are similar, you're actually adjusting your business plan. When you're doing that, over a period of time, investors or even some of the so-called, supporters will start questioning whether or not you are doing the right thing. And then sometimes even at times even saying some very negative things about what they're trying to achieve. So I think the project, credit to him, he was able to stay focused and very determined. What he's trying to do is ultimately is the correct thing, and continue this path and transform himself and the company. And today, of course, he's a global mobile payment solutions or online payment solutions through many different countries around the world. And that transformation is through his determination and his positive attitudes. And that's not easy things to do.
Yeah, I cannot agree more that Praji is such a person with great attitude and yet so humble. In fact, our colleague and venture partner Geng Ping wrote an article after Praji and Nium becomes unicorn. So the story was ambitious yet humble, a note on Nium becoming a unicorn. So the story was actually about how 18 months before he became unicorn, how his business was affected badly by COVID. And later on, in order to make sure the company stay alive, he took a severe cut in his pay. And the same goes for his leadership team as well. So really kudos to him, having that drive, determination to push on. So I also want to really go into the part on turning around a business, right? Because I think that part is really important as well, because business, we don't expect it to be successful always, because something that we can't control is the environmental factors. Do you know about a company that has a great turnaround story?
I guess that will be probably the best example is ourselves. I think, so for many of you probably familiar, the Vertex started off in 1988 originally as a corporate venture arm of Singapore Technologies. Under the leadership of Mr. Lee, the company grew very well, delivered good results. But unfortunately, Vertex were hit by the dot-com bubble. And subsequently, the company was tremendously challenged and had to be restructured and put right under as a wholly owned subsidiary of Temasek, and immediately hibernated for a period of time until 2008 I was brought on board to restart Vertex. Initially with about $200 million of so-called remaining portfolio and a bit of cash from Temasek to restart this initiative. Little do we know at that point in time that, while restarting the plan and the idea was great, immediately you discover that 50% of people don't quite believe that restarting Vertex was such a good idea. They believe that whatever happens should be just buried and then forget about it. And then the other 50% people, of course, thought that restarting venture capital is a good idea because giving technology innovations is happening. Unfortunately, these 50% people, however, they decided that it's a good idea, but they don't think that the team that they brought on board, especially myself, is the correct people to build these opportunities. And then so the journey was treacherous, and there's many hurdles and there are many unfortunate obstacles. And we were fortunate enough that we were able to bring on board many good people to join us initially, and we were able to focus on the matters at hand and deliver strong, good results. And subsequently, in 2014, further transform ourselves to today's network of 6 partnerships. We were over $6 billion US under management and continuously delivering good results. And in a way, we came from the near-death experience to today growing global network of $6 billion, of venture capital portfolios. And that by itself is a long and interesting turnaround story.
Yes, thank you for sharing this. And I think this is something that many people didn't know as well, because you look at Vertex today and then you think that we have always been successful, but this is not the case. I'm also curious, what led you to accept the role at Vertex, and then also accepting the challenge of diversifying the LP pool, because that is really, to me, super impressive, because you have to convince people, and quite a big percentage of the fund is to be invested by external LPs.
Well, initially, when the business plan then was the single LP focus, where Temasek owns 100% of the Vertex holding, providing capital for us to invest in technology and disruption. That was the initial business plan, which I think is still continuing. The idea was that technology is disrupting many businesses. It's important for us to be active participants of that, to understand where are the trends and where are the opportunities. At the same time, make some good money out of it. So that was the initial idea. What changes along the way was 2014, when there was a major turning point whereby recognizing that in order for us to scale further and faster, better, is to have this current enrichment or network fund, whereby majority of capital are raised from external investors, with Vertex holding as a holding company, providing anchor funding to each of the partnership. And then each partners must be able to contribute own personal capital to the fund and grow the business themselves. So, of course, at that point in time, looking at today, of course, we all have been able to raise multiple funds since then. But initially, the hardest things is to convince people, especially the first LP, why should they give you the money? Why should they believe in what you're trying to do? Makes a lot of sense. And so that is a biggest challenge. That the initial very first LP is a critical factor. And for Southeast Asia, we always appreciate the very first investor, LPs, who invested in us, and that LPs is always very important to us.
Yes, totally. I think in 2014, the fund is already generating results. So maybe people will be thinking, if it's doing so well, why do you want to let other people, right, come and share in the pie? So I think that overcoming that feeling is difficult. I want to also know what is the hard truth there, in terms of diversifying the LP pool. I imagine you have gone through a lot during that period.
Yeah, I think the basic principle still boils down to unfortunately, remember I mentioned about the 50% people believe that the past failure was a problem. And so that 50% drives some of the commentary and some of the perceptions. While we were able to very quickly from 2008 to 2013 deliver very strong good results, there's still concern at that point in time whether this is going to be sustainable. Is this just a matter of short-term temporary gain? Eventually, you may come back to the same problem that happened before. So therefore, there's many concerns on whether or not how do we create a structure whereby it's sustainable? How do you create a structure where the interest of the investment professional is aligned to the investors? Or as investor at that point in time, single investor. So then after many round discussion, it appears that the best way is to create a GPLP structure, which is the standard formula from venture capital industry, whereby you must give each of the team member ability to put their own money into the fund and then align their interest with the LP. And if they are able to do that and convince more people to put capital with us, naturally, the Temasek or Vertex Holding will be able to similarly match that amount, and recognizing that there's a validation going on by the other people, and so that created that structure that today continues going on for a long time.